Hello and welcome back to Today in Space. This is episode 308. I am your host from the East Coast, Alex Orphanos, and this is Today in Space, the podcast about all things space and the power of the scientific mindset. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this week right after the big interview that we had last week on People of Space with Thomas Reamer from Space Hero, this global competition where you could win a trip to space. That's going to happen in the coming future. We talked about that, and we follow that up with an episode here as it is May. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, so what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about that to start the conversation in case, you're, I don't know, everyone's dealing with it differently. So, clearly one of my coping things is coming here on this podcast and having a conversation with no one. But you're listening and you're also a part of it. I'm just the only one talking. But so I'm not saying that I have it all figured out, but I have some interesting tools that I use. And I don't know, it's not so much to say that what I'm saying is exactly what you should do, but more to have a conversation to maybe allow you to think about how it would work for you in your own mindset, and just to hear that somebody else is working on it and having results. Sometimes a little bit of hope is all we need. And so, I don't know, I hope you're doing well. I hope if you are struggling with it that, you find some healing and you allow for yourself to have some healing, which is definitely the thing that I'm working on. So that's my side of the balance here. But this is an episode of Thoughts from an Engineer. So we'll talk about that in a second here. But, if you're new to this podcast, we talk about a lot of different things, all things space, in fact. We talk to people in the industry who work in STEM or who work and maybe their businesses, like Thomas Reamer last week. Their business is in space. And we also talk about, we love rocket technology and engineering. I'm an aerospace engineer by college degree, and I have worked extensively over the years in additive manufacturing, 3D printing of metals and composites and sand and wood and crazy resin stuff. And we have a 3D printing lab in that we run out of our house, and we have an Etsy shop. We have basically two small businesses that I run after hours, and the beginning of my day job is working in the 3D printing industry as a support engineer, basically helping people who use the 3D printing technology that we sell them to whenever they run into issues. So all the bad stuff, we're constantly troubleshooting, and basically I'm like a private eye of 3D printing problems. I'm the front line of when things go bad. And my big audacious goal, and something I'm working towards here, and this podcast is a big part of it, it all kind of started from this podcast, is that I would one day want to fuse those two things, space and 3D printing, together, and be able to help with manufacturing on a space station and having, maybe going on a simulation mission, an analog mission. Like we just heard our friend James Burke from the Mars Society, executive director of the Mars Society. He was just on his first mission at the Mars Research Desert Station, which is an analog mission, a simulation. I would love to do something like that where I'm able to use my design skills, because I've been designing in CAD since I was in college. So at this point, 2008 is when I started doing it. So it's 2023. So that's a long time, 15 years. So I can design things real quick. 3D printers help me make things very, very quickly. And I would love to apply all the stuff I'm learning now to something in the future, whether it's the 3D printer that goes around the moon, or that, when we live on another planet or on a station somewhere else, we figuring out how to use 3D printing, applying that technology to solve the biggest, hardest problems that are out there. that's the goal of this. And even the only reason I can even bring that up and like share that with the internet is because I've worked on my mind and my mindset. This podcast has given me an outlet to focus my energy in my brain towards a goal. And I struggled for a very, very long time as an aerospace engineer, always overqualified, and on the rare occasion underqualified for any of the jobs that I applied for as an aerospace engineer. And for many, many years, we've told the story in the past, but I've grown a little bit older, so I'll rehash it, and I'm kind of trying to compartmentalize it. So we'll talk about those days when I found the need to learn my mind and my body. Well, at this time it was my mind, and nowadays it's to control my body. But to control my mind, I was an engineer in college. I wasn't going to graduate on time, mostly because of, honestly, not knowing enough that you needed to really schedule your whole collegiate career correctly, because there are classes that just aren't, especially in a niche degree like aerospace engineering. It's not a huge, maybe nowadays it's huge, but 2008, that was not a big major, even at the schools that specialized in that. And I should have done better to, you assume me paying all this money that it's just going to be, it's just going, like that kind of, it's like a scheduling thing is just going to happen. And that is definitely the wrong mindset to go into it. But when you don't know what you don't know. And that's a really great saying. We interrupt this episode about mental health to talk about one of our sponsors that can help you with some aspect of your mental health. Sometimes it's not all about breathing and meditation and taking good notes. Sometimes it's about more human things, more, things like grooming and taking care of yourself. And Manscaped is here to help you do that and to simplify that task so that it becomes less of a thing that you don't want to spend the time doing and more of a thing that you look forward to, and a tool, a hack that you can use to turn around the momentum of the day. And whether you're using the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, the Lawnmower 4.0, or the Weed Whacker 2.0, or any of the men's grooming stuff that Manscaped offers, whether it's the Beard Balm or the Beard Shampoo, the Beard Hedger Pro Kit is great. I highly recommend it. But at the end of the day, what you need to do is take care of yourself. And if you're looking to join the beard journey with us here on the podcast, or just take better care of all that hair, go to manscaped.com, use code word SPACE, get 20% off and free shipping, and get tools, more tools that you can use to help make yourself feel better and also put yourself out there. When you groom, you put yourself out there as you're taking care of yourself. All the little things count. So code word SPACE, 20% off, and free shipping at manscaped.com. That's code word SPACE, manscaped.com. Now back to the show. But basically, struggled to get my degree on time and then had a lot of doubt. I was able to really excel at the really complicated classes like spacecraft design, and we had orbital dynamics and compressed flow, incompressible flow, learning things like mock diamonds and breaking the sound barrier. And those classes I did fine in, and it was the basic fundamental courses. I realized later after learning about it that I just wasn't interested in those things, and I didn't understand the why. But if you were like me at that time and felt like you're too stupid if you even asked the question, like if you didn't understand the why immediately, that made you stupid to even like bridge the question. Or at least that's what I had in my mind. That was my insecurity of being somebody who, really fought to get that opportunity to go to a place like where I went to, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and like I had to work really hard in my small town that was very close to no longer being accredited by the state for STEM. Like the stuff inside the school was so old that it would have been like grandfathered out of being accredited by the state. So if that gives you any like idea of where I was freshman year of college, that's kind of where it was. A lot of imposter syndrome, and then my learning disabilities or my challenges, what made me really good at high school didn't make me good at this. So a lot of that definitely set me up for where I ended up. Ended up getting addicted to cigarettes. I guess that's the part of the story I'll say. And basically realizing later that, learning about how my brain worked and just neuroscience. I had a really good mentor at the time. I also had, while we were taking classes, I found a really awesome group of people that made me feel like I wasn't dumb, and we all studied together. And it was cool when I got synced up with those classes. You can get to take the same class with those people over and over again. I ended up having people that are now just, absolutely crushing it in the space industry. I'm thinking of two women in particular that are just at the highest levels in the aerospace industry. One doing amazing human-related, human survival engineering and planning for the big missions that are going to basically take people to the moon and beyond, and others working at, some of the biggest engine companies in the world. So it's amazing what meeting people can do and making relationships. And that's essentially what this podcast has done for me, in me being able to have some kind of hopefully be able to help progress the space industry in my own tiny, minuscule little spacecraft in the vastness of the universe here with Today in Space. So it's opened me up to a whole bunch of things, but the big thing that I had to work on at that time was my anxiety from these insecurities and just from not really doing the fundamental work that I needed to, or just saying, hey, I'm struggling. Like I just wasn't communicating at all. And I ended up learning a lot about breathing techniques and meditation, and those things helped me out. And honestly, I just bought a new pack of them, but writing in a notebook and taking notes and jotting down your thoughts, that has probably been the single greatest skill. The breathing is great, the meditation is great, but I'm a human being, and once I feel good again, I stop doing those things. But the notebook seriously is, for me, where things changed. In college, the notebook was the thing that changed how I got stuff in my brain. I was lucky enough to use any kind of connection that I had to find an internship, and I ended up working at a toolmaking shop in Connecticut called Westminster Tool. And Ray and the Coombs family took me in when I was like at just a crazy insecure time in my life where I wasn't going to graduate in 4 years. All the things that, like, expectations that people would have had for me of like, you do this and you get this, broken. But I ended up doing well at that internship. They brought me on full time to work on their, they were trying to get a contract for aerospace work. And so I dove in, and that was some of the best times and worst times for me. Best time in my feeling like I was, the great thing about tool making and manufacturing is it's hands-on. If you want to, at the end of the day, see something in front of you that is done and you say, I made that, go into manufacturing, or at least try, just check it out. And like, I remember walking in there and thinking, when I leave here someday, I want to be able to know what each machine is in here. And I can tell you that now, like, working there and learning from the tool makers and learning about G code and M code and all the ways that these tool makers would make the things that make things, the tools that have to make millions and millions of parts, and they have to be dimensionally accurate, or at least enough that you can counteract it. And then there's a whole business in modifying the settings that are used to make the parts in the mold. And so I had a crash course in a lot of different things, but also in culture building in the company. And one of the big tasks, again, at this point, I was a mess, but I was given a responsibility, and I stepped up to the plate, and I was helping the CEO rebuild essentially the apprenticeship programs that used to be a thing in the trades, where if you want to get into a trade, electrician, plumber, machinist, like there was a book, of everything that you needed to learn that your master toolmaker in this case would have you run through, and you would go through the whole book, and over your time of working you would, okay, we got to learn this, so we're gonna go to this page, you're gonna learn this thing, and once the master toolmaker said you learned it, they would sign off on it, and you advanced. And then there's incentives for you to grow in your career, and then you can be more valuable to the company, and also to the whole unit solving the problem, right? There's probably one guy who's really good at EDM, but we really need a good person on the lathe or the 5-axis mill, So it was a very amazing experience, and I learned about education and putting together how to learn things. But I also had the opportunity to learn from someone who had been brought in, who taught about the way the brain works, and that's when I learned about color coding and a thing called mind mapping, and just different ways to process information that's not just the template that's given to you. And I realized in later years that was so important, learning things that are not the template, because if I look back, I've never been good at the template version of whatever exists already. So that takes a while to get comfortable enough and confident enough to take the step to go forward. All right, folks, another tool. Caldera Lab is here. Men's skincare can be complicated. It can also just be full of plastics and things that are just not, they end up making your skin more irritated, Caldera Lab uses some of the best ingredients that's out there. You can go to their website, calderalab.com, to check out all the stuff they have out there. They talk about the ingredients they use, that they're harvesting this material, these essential oils, and the things that they're putting in. I use the base layer and clean slate every day. The clean slate I use in the shower to wash my face and neck and just get all the gunk from the day before. Right now, pollen is everywhere, so it's really nice to do that. I'm also going out on my walks at lunch, so I'm getting a lot of sun. And while I don't think the base layer does anything to protect my skin from the sun, my skin is hydrated. And what's hilarious is that, my face is doing great. I'm looking very handsome. But also, my arms are getting a lot of sun now that we're not wearing sleeves all the time here in New England. And I can see that my arms are starting to get a little bit dry. My face is doing just great. So if you want to take another step, another thing that might help you in your mental health journey to find balance in your life, both in the mental and in the body, Caldera Lab is a great place to start. Use code word SPACE, get 20% off anything in the store, and they've got a lot of stuff out there. And I was able to try a whole bunch of things, but really, I think at the end of the day, my core, my fundamentals are the clean slate and the base layer. Just to take care of the moneymaker, Caldera Lab, code word SPACE, 20% off, and get your men's skincare, take it to another level, and put good stuff on your skin. The largest organ you have, Caldera Lab, code word SPACE. Thanks. Let's get back to the show. So the notebook now, I have a small notebook that I'm trying out. It's very, very thin. I did this back, actually, it's funny. I did this back in the Westminster Tool days. I had a very, very small notebook that I carried everywhere in my pocket, and then I had, larger notebooks and stuff like that. But right now, for me and the way my brain works, I'm not diagnosed with anything, but there's a lot of ADHD tendencies, and I've learned from learning about the brain and from learning, listening to Huberman Lab podcast, who's a literal neuroscientist. So, there are behavioral, non-pharmaceutical things that you can do to test, to figure out, is this helpful for you, and a lot of those things have been very helpful for me. So, and the notebook and things like that definitely tie into it. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to give yourself a little bit of space, and that's what breathing and meditation does for me and my mind. Is it gives me just a little buffer, a little bit of time, even if it's only a few minutes, 5 or 10 even in a day. If you're able to find something that can free up your mind, if your mind is overloaded, or as I'm doing now, trying to make sure that my body is as healthy as my mind, or just healthier, right? If it's struggling, try and heal it. So, I've been going on walks at lunch. I've been posting a lot from those times, because it's again, I'm giving myself, even though it's a physical activity, it's also helping my mind, and it's all intermingled. So, the point of me ranting here into the abyss with nobody in the room is just to say that if you're struggling, you're not alone. And if you're not completely overwhelmed, and if you are, please go find help. Go find someone you love, someone that loves you, and just talk to them, because they would want to help if they can. So, but if you want to do the daily grind, find the smallest thing and just do it every day. And don't put too much on. And if you feel like there's too much pressure, you can always stop and make it less. I mean that, and like the breathing stuff, right? If one of the exercises is too tough, find something that's a little bit simpler. And, if you need a little bit of inspiration, or just someone to email us at todayinSpacePodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on social. If you're listening to the show, if you follow the show, we're trying to build a community here. So as much as speaking into the abyss is good for my mental health, I hope that you listening is a little bit of help, just to let you know that you're a human being living here on Earth with all of us. We're all a part of this crazy rock spaceship called Earth. So you're not alone. Never mind the millions of billions of microbial life that live within you, and the millions and billions and trillions of bits of stardust that made us who we are. That's real. And I'm from my own mental health, I'm just so glad that my telescope is back. It had a little bit of a problem, but the team at Vaonis took care of us. The telescope went from here to France and back in less than 2 weeks, and now we've got it back. So big thanks to the Vaonis team for helping us out, solving the problem quickly, and they didn't even work weekends, guys. That's the French way. So thank you, Vaonis. I'm going to be sharing more astronomy pictures, and I wish you well. Live long and prosper. We'll see you in the next episode of Today in Space. Have a good one.